Hi, I'm Tony Lacantro and I'm at the RIU Resources Roundup here in Sydney, and I'm joined today by Tony Lawry, who's the IR person for Leigh Creek Energy, code LCK. G'day Tony.
Good to see you again, Tony.
Yeah, I believe we had an interview at the RIU Good Oil Conference a couple of weeks ago, and Leigh Creek, not only has your share price moved, but you've also had some developments. Can you tell investors about that?
Yeah, sure. Firstly, the share price movement was historic or momentous for us because it means that we've passed that magical barrier of 100 mil market cap now, which is really important because it means you go from retail to investment grade, and some of the funds need to look at you then. So we've always looked forward to this day. So it's really good that we're having this interview today. But I think it's on the back of not only the events of the last couple of weeks where one of the environmental groups acting for the traditional owners wanted to ask the court if they could injunct the company. That case was dealt with fairly swiftly by the court, which we're really pleased about. But what that actually meant in real terms for us is it validated the environmental credentials of the project. We've been through probably you could argue an unprecedented independent review of the environmental nature and credentials of the project, and we've passed all of those tests, and that court case has validated that, which we're really pleased about. But that comes on the back of a number of milestones. So just going back in time a little bit, in April this year, after the state election in South Australia, we received the environmental approval, which gave us the authority to effectively make gas from the deep coal on the remnant coal mine at Leigh Creek. And then from there we had the process or activity notification approvals since then. So as we sit today, we're very close to creating a situation where we're operating the pre-commercial demonstration phase of the project. So we're very, very close to that happening. So I think everything that's led up to that environmental approval, everything that's led up to to this event that we're talking of today to operate the PCD is what the market's acknowledged, and that's why we are where we are.
Yeah, I guess you go from being somewhat a penny dreadful to a serious, really energy provider now. So I guess you leave that speculative area. Now your share price is finally through 20 cents. How do you intend to see it increase exponentially from here?
Well, I think there's a very big event coming during, and it will start during the pre-commercial demonstration, and then it will complete by the end of the year, and that's the upgrading of our 2C contingent resource to a 2P proven probable reserve. And the market acknowledges that 2P gas, or proven probable reserve, has a commercial value. And based on merger and acquisition analytics, that gas is worth somewhere between 50 cents and maybe a little bit over $1, depending on the maturity of the project, revenue streams, etc. So let's say that gas is worth 50 cents a gigajoule, which is the trading unit of gas. And we think that 2,964 2C petajoules will convert to somewhere around the 2,000 petajoules of 2P gas. That, you can just do the simple maths, one multiplied by the other puts an enormous value onto LCK's balance sheet. And so I think your question was, what are we going to do between now and perhaps the rest of the year to improve the company's value, which should be reflected in the share price? It's executing that pre-commercial demonstration phase very well, getting enough information quickly to the certifier so that gas can be converted to reserve status. And from there it's executing and progressing with the commercial phases of the project, which are over the next year or so.
Tony, a lot's been said about the energy crisis in Australia. How are you dealing with it at Leigh Creek?
Yeah, look, you're right, Tony. In terms of electricity and gas in Australia, that's been widely reported in the press, and particularly in the gas market. We've got a perfect storm. In a lot of the eastern states are not allowing companies to explore for gas onshore, and then we've had a massive demand, particularly as the Gladstone LNG facilities have been completed. So we've got supply is decreasing on the east coast and demand is increasing. So we chose South Australia for some very good reasons. First of all, the resource at Leigh Creek is ideal for in situ gasification, and we've got all the infrastructure that we need around us. So and we've talked about the environmental credentials. But the South Australian government have enacted legislation and written into that legislation, the Petroleum and Geothermal Energy Act, the approval pathway for in situ gasification. So the approval pathway has been very clear to us, and we've followed that to the letter. But we've worked hand in hand with the South Australian government regulator, and they are recognised as one of the world's best regulators, and there's some really obvious reasons for that. They're a very positive thinking regulator. They follow their legislation and their principles and policies and processes to the letter of the law, and they don't give anyone any concessions, and we don't ask for them. But they're just very proactive and work with us and all companies in the petroleum space in South Australia to help us to get projects to commercial stage. And if you can prove the environmental merits and you've got a commercial resource that can be commercialised, then the South Australian government will work closely with you. And so that's our experience with the South Australian government regulator, and indeed the politicians, whether Labor or Liberal, has been very positive, and they recognise this as a good project for the state. It will create enormous numbers of jobs in construction and operational stage for 30 plus years. Royalty payments and all the economic development multiples that come with that are well recognised. So a good jurisdiction to deal with.
Great story. Thanks a lot, Tony.
Thank you, Tony.